So, there's a lot of news, almost all political, I'm afraid, but that's the times we live in. So Trump signed an order to expand his own powers, which is the kind of thing which I think will not hold up in court. He also just recently, I heard coming in, he made a statement that only the president and the attorney general can make any authoritative statement about what the law is in America. And this is what he's been talking about for the last week. He's expecting courts to step in and say that everything he's doing is illegal, because it certainly is. And the question is he going to obey the law or is he going to just defy the law? And he seems to be preparing to just totally defy the law, which will create quite a moment of crisis in America, and then we'll see. But anyway, now he has, this one here is something which is essentially what they pointed out a long time ago, Schedule F. This is the statement to claim that all independent government agencies will be under his control. And there will be no longer any independence in the Federal Trade Commission and the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Federal Election Commission, that all those will now be under direct control of the president, which fits the unitary executive theory that the far-right fringe Republicans have been pushing. So, but we'll see if any of this holds up. It's going to be met with legal challenges. And that's why I think Trump today said, you know, there is no law, I'm above all the law. But I think we'll see. The Supreme Court might be on his side, but they might not. Amy Coney Barrett has been being more and more rebellious, and this is what happened to Trump last time. He appointed Supreme Court justices, and he expected them to rubber stamp everything, including overthrowing the election and letting him just claim the presidency, and they wouldn't go for it. So I think we're going to see again whether the other people around him, the judges seem, this is the intention of the U.S. government, this was the plan, was that the courts would be relatively immune to political pressure. And even when the political pressure gets extreme, the courts will stop them, and that seems to be happening. Some courts are already stopping the worst of it. That's why I'm not panicking yet. He's doing a lot of crazy things, but I think within 3 to 6 months, the courts will step in and stop it all. And he will discover that you can't just do anything you want. He thinks he can. Nixon said this too. Nixon said if the president does that, makes it legal, and he found out that he can't stand up to the courts. And Trump tried it last time, and he couldn't stand up to the courts, so we'll see. I think, as always, just I've seen in the last 10 years, the strongest part of the American system that works is the free press. The free press is really powerful. You can really find out what's happening in America. That I like. There's a lot of presses rolling over and submitting and becoming propaganda outfits like the Washington Post and the Los Angeles Times, but there's a whole lot of independent press out there that is telling the truth. And so I think that a lot of people know the truth, and the courts are holding up pretty well too, so we'll see. Anyway, RFK is now in charge of healthcare in America. He's a complete lunatic, and so his plan, he believes that everything that's wrong with people is because of them eating unhealthy food, and that's what makes them drug addicts and stuff, and that's what makes them depressed. So he's going to take everybody that's unhealthy and send them off to wellness farms, which are essentially concentration camps where they will work for years laboring, growing organic food, which he thinks will make them healthy. And this, by the way, is a pretty old idea. There was a similar one around the 1910s and 1920s. There were people like this. Kellogg was one of the main ones, the guy that makes the breakfast food. He invented cornflakes, and he had this, he was sort of like a quack doctor like this. He had these places you would go, and all the celebrities would go there to like dry out from alcoholism and stuff, and he would put you on a strict diet of no sex and cornflakes, believing that this would cure all your problems, and like bathing in like mineral water and stuff. This happens all the time. These people with these, they make sort of a resort thing, but here he's going to commit everybody that he doesn't like to these things. We'll see if any of this happens. Once again, I think, like Donald Trump, he can have these ideas, but when he tries to do it, there's going to be something called the law and the courts that step in and say, wait, you can't just grab people who are depressed and stick them in a concentration camp. You would have to convict them of a crime and give them a lawyer and have them have a chance to defend themselves. You can't just sweep them up because you find them undesirable and you think it would be better for them to go to this place.
Well, my objection is they did it with for gay people. They try to send them to those camps.
They've been trying it all my life, but they've been unable to do it. No, they tried many times. The southern states tried to quarantine gay people when AIDS came out. They passed a bunch of bills, and they could not do it because the federal government wouldn't let them, because of the Bill of Rights. Like the Fourth Amendment means they can't just arrest you. They have to actually accuse you of a crime and take you to court and give you a lawyer to defend you and prove it.
Okay, but those cases, for example, those gay children that, for example, were put by parents in those camps to re-educate their sexuality.
Oh, if you're not of age and your parents do it, then it's legal because your parents still have control of you. That's true.
Even if it is such a drastic measure, if
Yes.
we are talking in terms of unconstitutional.
Oh, yes, and that does happen. If there are parents who don't like what their kids are doing, like they're in a cult or they're a drug addict, and they send them off to these basically prisons, and that's legal if you're underage. But not for adults. But absolutely, underage children, they're pretty much subject to what their parents do to a large extent.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. But adults, you can't do this to adults.
Because my guess was no court has ever gone against this kind of treatment.
Oh, well, if it gets extreme enough, then they actually take you away from your parents. Because you're like, if you're religious and you deny your kids medical care, and they really need the medical care, they will take them away sometimes. But you have to be pretty extreme. Yeah. Anyway, that's good. That's a good point. So this one's pretty amazing. They found a gene that makes humans able to speak. And they put it in mice, and now the mice talk more. They don't speak with human speech, but they have improved, more detailed vocalization, so that's pretty interesting. And you know, speech, I think, is the number one thing that is generally regarded as separating humans from the animals. That is, our main thing is our complicated, complex language, which makes it possible for us to add up information and develop technology and everything. Our language is really the big thing we have that animals don't. See, somehow I don't feel if there is a president ordered to legit cabinet. Well, yeah, I agree with you, folks. I think Donald Trump is highly illegitimate, but we have been here before. In the time near the Civil War, things got this bad. And in my childhood in the Vietnam War, things were almost this bad. So our structure has held up before because there are many checks and balances. And it might hold up this time too. It's not clear though. We're going to see. So, like I say, China is charging ahead. In every way, they have an LLM that's better than ours and much cheaper. And now they're making their own quantum-resistant encryption standards. They do not trust the U.S. encryption standards, which is with very good reason, which we're going to talk about tonight. The NSA has gotten caught red-handed downgrading American encryption standards and putting secret backdoors in them so the government can get in. So most other nations that are hostile to us will not use our encryption methods, assuming they've been sabotaged by the NSA. So they're making their own quantum-resistant encryption standards. And, you know, theirs might be better than ours. So the people, this is actually pretty interesting, and Daleolithic is very well known. So if you're what's going on, Doge is very strange. They're not doing anything for government efficiency. They're not really saving any money. They've been lying completely about how much money they saved in what little changes they've made so far. What they're mostly doing is just firing everybody and saying, if anybody wants your job back, you have to come talk to me personally. And she points out, I think, well, this is a protection racket. We're destroying it, and if you want it back, you have to come to me and make a deal. Give me something I want, and then I'll give you something. You have to basically pay me protection money to get the money back. That's essentially what it is. That does seem to be the best description of it.
Well, in fact, I mean, this seems to me that goes in agreement. I read somewhere that in this round of firing that is circulating across different offices and institutions, for people who decide not to resign, they will be interviewed, and within the set of questions of the interview, there is if they support Trump or not.
Well, I haven't heard that, but I have heard you get something like 5 minutes to explain your job, and if they don't like it, you're fired. And on top of that, they've been sending people emails out of the blue saying you're fired for poor performance, even when they have nothing but glowing performance reviews. So it's completely fake. You know, it's all lies. It's not to save money, and it is to create fear. It's to make everybody afraid of the government, so you will do whatever you're told and not complain. So he can loot the treasury. That part is obvious. He loot the treasury and put it in his pocket because he's putting money in his own companies. He's shutting down his rivals, so they go to his companies. And but, you know, in many ways, for people that are higher level government officials, it's a protection racket like what he's doing with the mayor of New York. He's saying, look, I can help you if you do my will, and then you'll be under my control.
He needs the help with immigration.
Yeah, yeah. And that's contrary to what the people of New York want, but he has to do it, and he's arranged that he's not going to get a pardon. He's going to get dismissed without prejudice, which means they can attack him at any time in the courts. So he's like owned, permanently owned. I've got a bad thing still hanging over your head.
Because of the political will.
And people say the governor of New York should remove the mayor, but I just heard Lawrence McDonald talk about it, guy tonight, and he said that would take years. It's actually much more difficult than you think. She can't just declare it. She has to go to like a trial and all this. It's not that easy.
Cuomo didn't try with, what's the name of the...
Giuliani?
With, okay. With all that.
Yeah, yeah.
And they hated each other.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
really
But
hated
of course,
each other.
and of course, that's the way it should be because he won an election. I mean, overriding the will of the voters is not easy,
De Blasio.
and it shouldn't be. Yeah. All right.
De Blasio.
Machine learning. Yeah. Good. All right. Good. All right. The Post suggests Doge are stealing private government data. Yes, absolutely. Well, I didn't know they're stealing it for LLM modeling on Grok. That's interesting. That might be true. You know. Anyway, so I'm going to stop at the news.